Welcome to the Criminal Law and Procedure Lecture Series. At the end of each slide, there will be a 10-second delay. Use this time to stop the lecture and take your notes. When you are done, push play to continue. This lecture will begin in 5 seconds. Welcome to Criminal Law and Procedure Lecture 1.8 on Defenses, Part 3 Justification, and let's talk about bread. French bread to be precise, a topic that is well known by this French author, Victor Hugo. What do I mean? Well, Hugo knew the importance of French bread to this guy. His name is Jean Valjean, and he lives in pre-revolutionary France. According to Hugo's story, Jean Valjean's family is starving to death, so he steals a loaf of French bread, not to keep it for himself, but to feed his starving family. Unfortunately for Jean Valjean, he's captured by the police, and now we have a conundrum. Jean Valjean's mens rea wasn't to steal the bread for his own gain. It was to steal the bread to save his family. What do we do with this guy? Well, Victor Hugo knew what to do with this guy. He sentenced him to jail for 19 years and then sent him out, only to be chased across the country by this crazy police officer while he tried to protect this little girl during the French Revolution. In other words, now we have a musical and 2 movies to go with Victor Hugo's bread novel, Les Mis. But more importantly, we have an issue. What happens when the law and reality don't meet? In other words, are there times when breaking the law is allowed? Well, there are, and we're going to learn them today. With that said, go to the next slide. Just like with excuse, justification is a valid affirmative defense for violating the law. So, you committed a criminal act, you present a valid defense, and you are not guilty. However, there is a difference between excuse and justification, and it's a big one. Excuse focuses on a mental or physical state of an offender and whether that mental or physical state excuses the offender for committing the crime. So you committed a criminal act, but your mental or physical state was the cause of you committing that act. You are not guilty. That is an excuse defense. Justification is a series of defenses where the accused admits he committed the criminal act. He has no excuse for it, but he's not accountable because he was justified or correct in his actions. What does this look like? I committed a criminal act, but I was justified, or I was right to commit the crime. It was okay for me to commit this crime in this instance. Because of this, I am not guilty. I have a justification defense. Go to the next slide. Let's look at the defense of consent to see the difference between a state of mind excuse defense and a justification defense. The victim's effective consent, or the actor's reasonable belief that the victim consented to the conduct, excuses an otherwise criminal act. What does that look like? Come at me, bro. If that guy attacked Vin Diesel without any provocation, without Vin saying, "Come at me, bro," he committed assault and violated the criminal law. But once Vin says, "Come at me, bro," Vinny consented to being attacked. He said, "It's okay for you to try and attack me." And society turns around and says, "Hey, he can't now claim that he was assaulted." This is what consent looks like. Now, can anyone consent to being the victim of a crime? The answer is no. Consent is not a defense when the victim's state of mind is immaterial as to whether the offender actually committed the crime. For example, here's Dr. Death, Jack Kevorkian. He was the leader in a concept called physician assisted suicide. He believed that people should die with dignity and that physicians should help people die if they requested their help. The state of Michigan disagreed because it's illegal in Michigan to assist in the suicide of another human being, even if they consent to your help. Dr. Death was charged and found guilty of second-degree murder. Go to the next slide. Our next justification defense is well known: self defense. Excuses or justifies a homicide or assault committed while repelling violence towards the defendant. And that is key. You cannot be the aggressor in this situation. Somebody had to be coming at you violently in order for you to claim that you had to commit a homicide, which means that you had to kill them, or you assaulted them in self defense. And there's two other things you have to do as well. The defense must be a response to a threat of death or serious bodily harm. Merely being attacked is not enough. Also, the defense must be proportional to the threat being faced by the offender. For example, you're in a closed room, somebody comes at you with a knife, they are the aggressor, you have a fear of death or serious bodily injury, and you pull out your gun and kill them. That may be self defense. If you're sitting in a tank and somebody comes at you with a knife and you run them over with the tank, not so much. Well, this is self-defense when it comes to somebody attacking you, but what if somebody's going after your stuff? The castle doctrine, or stand your ground, allows the use of non-deadly force to protect a home, business, or belongings. So, dear potential package stealer, cameras are rolling and guns are loaded. Those guns better not be used to stop the package stealer, because that's not self-defense, that's murder. However, the castle doctrine is being extended in states like Florida to include the use of deadly force to protect a home. So, warning, protected by gun, that door you just kicked in was locked for your protection, not mine. This sign may be correct in Florida. Go to the next slide. Our last two justification defenses are similar. They are duress versus necessity. Duress excuses acts that are normally criminal, where the defendant shows that the acts were the product of threats, including a reasonable fear of immediate death or serious bodily injury. In other words, this is every Hollywood movie where you or your loved one were threatened with immediate death by the bad guys unless you did something illegal for them very soon. Necessity is identical to duress, except that it requires pressure from physical, natural causes. In other words, this is every Hollywood movie where you're doing something illegal because of some natural disaster or outside force beyond your control. Go to the next slide. Now you've learned all the legal theory behind criminal law. You learned the elements of criminal law, how we categorize criminal actions, and criminal defenses. When it comes to criminal defenses, you learned about excuse defenses and justification defenses. Under excuse defenses, you learned about state of mind defenses. What were we thinking when we violated the law? This was mistake of law and insanity defenses. And you learned about physical state defenses. How did we feel physically when we violated the law? This was intoxication, age of offender, and entrapment. When it came to justification, were we justified or right to violate the law in the eyes of society? We had consent, self-defense, duress, and necessity. Thank you for watching this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you in class.